cyber attacks continue to dominate headlines. How can businesses protect themselves against the ever-evolving threat?
I think that's a big challenge because the threat, as you say, the threat is changing. And I think that one of the big things we're seeing now is the growth of AI and AI-generated threats. And, to a certain extent, the answer isn't more AI in defense. It's improving your cyber sort of hygiene, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's narrowing things like allow lists for applications, allow lists for communications, understanding where all the communications need to be going, what systems you have. So there's a sort of a shift in mind, in thinking that needs to happen, and probably zero trust is probably, to be fair, the way forward in that.
And another thing we've seen as well as AI in terms of cybersecurity is also, more state-sponsored attacks. Yeah. How can companies and governments protect themselves against these sorts of attacks?
Well, I think you've got to have a plan. Yeah. To be fair, and following things like the NIST cybersecurity framework is a real step forward on that. I think again, it's the basics. It's understand what you've got, understanding how it communicates, what needs to communicate, and defining risk, understanding what your most important things are and what your least important things are, and deal with them in that order.
That's a really good point. And obviously, a lot of people don't really talk about sectors like energy and manufacturing. How does cybersecurity affect those sort of sectors?
Well, I think the big fear for everyone is an attack on energy, and there's no electricity, and then we're in a mess. But that's the same for any utility. It's the same for healthcare and all those sort of things. So there is a lot of regulations that are coming along to address that. But it is that I think in the future, as look at energy, as the grid becomes smarter, because we have to balance that, the supply of energy against the demand. As that gets smarter, then it needs more protection. And with the sort of the growth in industrial IoT simplifying a lot of that functionality, you have to almost stop thinking about a lot of that as OT and start thinking about it as IT.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're taking a physical box and virtualizing it onto another physical box. Yeah. So, you can start to apply a lot of the IT security into that environment.
And on that note, how can we bridge that gap towards, OT security and IT security? Are there any other ways we could do that?
Well, I think it comes down to the basics, understanding what you have, what it's communicating with. And I think, one of the big things in the OT environment is sometimes it's a different set of protocols, but you've got to understand what they are. And effectively, you're trying to create micro perimeters around those to protect each individual asset. So you've got to stop thinking about how do I protect the network and start thinking about how do I protect each individual asset.